How do we deal with overwhelm? So this is what you asked for last month, popular topic, this one, and we're going to cover, I'll talk a little bit about why hacks and shortcuts don't work. Sometimes people expect this topic, I'm going to teach you time management and hacks and shortcuts, but they're not the solution, as we'll soon see. In fact, I'll explain where overwhelm really comes from, and we'll then we'll look at 10 strategies and tactics that you can use to help you avoid all of that overwhelm. I'm just going to quickly just mark something here. Okay, so I actually have a question. Let's start off with a question, and that is, if you think about this idea of overwhelm, and so just put in the comments box. Is this, how do you feel how do you feel and how frequently do you feel overwhelmed? Is this something you feel every day or just occasionally? Is overwhelm a big problem for you? How do you feel? Let me know in the comments what overwhelm means to you and how big a problem it is to you. And I may just read out a few comments just to see how this affects you. What is overwhelm to you? I get overwhelmed. I do get overwhelmed from time to time. I think that because I practice the things we're going to talk about, I don't have it as a huge problem. It's just occasionally I get a little bit stressed by it, but very occasionally. But as I can see for some people, Yvonne, for example, every single day. And I think a lot of people find that they get stressed every single day, they get overwhelmed every single day. So Yvonne, hopefully this is going to help you. Janice said occasionally, and it feels very stressful when it happens. Yes, overwhelm leads to stress, and stress isn't a good thing. Sheila says right now. Is that right now you're overwhelmed, or just generally at the moment? Overwhelmed is about 90% of the time. Okay, so that's a lot of the time. And I'm guessing, given that 50% of the time you're asleep, that perhaps that's all your waking hours. I don't know. Perhaps you don't sleep, Sheila. So we'll look at some ways to get rid of it. John says, seems more often now as everyone working under pressure. Okay, so that's interesting that in this current climate, for John, it seems to be an increasing problem. Coldip says it creates analysis paralysis. It does, absolutely. When we feel overwhelmed, we actually end up not getting stuff done, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Lisa, on a regular basis, as most customers have the same VAT quarter, okay, 50% of the time it's a problem, usually at key times connected to deadlines. Okay, and there's lots more comments. I won't read them all out. Well, I'll go through them quickly. Martin, things do get overwhelming when new clients want to onboard. Okay, so Dave says, if I get overwhelmed enough, something trips a switch and I get apathetic. Short of that, I tend to get snappy with my office manager, but I'm aware and try not to. Too many yesterday deadlines. And I get snappy as well. Sarah knows sometimes when I'm overwhelmed, I get snappy. And another comment, currently almost every day since we have started to open up and return to the new normal. So overwhelm is a big challenge. It's something that for many people, feeling overwhelmed every day, and it very often leads to stress. Some people said analysis paralysis. It's a big problem. And I could now spend the rest of the time teaching you hacks and shortcuts, and that would certainly be useful to you, but it's not going to fix the problem. And the reason it's not going to fix the problem, it doesn't matter how many shortcuts you create, any little hacks. The problem, I think, is because you and I, we're business owners, entrepreneurs, creators. And the problem with when you're a business owner, when you're a creator of, I don't know about you, but I'm always coming up with new ideas. I always come up with new stuff. I go on my bike every day for an hour, partly to try and switch off, but at the same time, that's for me, in my creative zone. I am at my creative when I'm out in the countryside on my bike, and I often come back, and I do this 5 times a week. Most of those times I'll come back with brand new ideas. And when you're a business owner, when you're growing a business, when you're an entrepreneur, you come up with new ideas. You just want to do these things. You come up with those ideas and you want to put them in place. And so we are sometimes victims of it's great having ideas, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, but sometimes we can create too much ideas. Sometimes we have to just stop and do less stuff. So I think it's a problem that if that's you, if you're a creative person, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, you'll always be coming up. I find I can't switch my brain off at times. It's always coming up with new business ideas. I can't stop thinking about the business. But I think the biggest reason for overwhelm, though, really comes from, and you might want to write this down, it comes from a lack of clarity. Overwhelm comes from a lack of clarity. When we're not clear about what we should be doing. We've got all these millions of things we want to do, all these things are popping into our brain that we've got to do, and we can't do everything. We have to get some clarity about what's really important. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. And as some of you put in the comments, when you get overwhelmed, you start to feel a sense of losing control. You're out of control. Things are coming at you fast, people with problems, emails, things that pop into your mind. We feel a lack of control, and that all leads to stress. And stress isn't a great thing either. It's not great for our physical health, our mental health. Some people have said the stress leads to eventually to apathy, leads to analysis paralysis, and we end up not knowing what to do next. We feel lost sometimes. So how do we get around that? And really the starting point, and those of you in the Value Pricing Academy will probably know I teach this a lot because this is something that I do every year. I said that overwhelm comes from a lack of clarity. And whilst there are lots of hacks and shortcuts and things that we do, and we'll go through loads of those in this session, the starting point is to get that clarity, is to get clarity as to what's important in our life. We can't do everything. We have to create clarity first. And so I teach a process in the Value Pricing Academy called From Vision to Plan. So let me just quickly describe that, because the starting point is to start to think about, and this can be both from a personal point of view and a business point of view. Today we'll focus on business because we're all business owners, but we also get overwhelmed in our personal lives as well. And so everything I'm going to talk about today, we apply to our business, but also to our lives generally. So the starting point is to start to create a vision, a picture of what you want your business to look like and what you want your life to look like. What do you want your business to look like when it's finally done? We need to create that picture. Think about it, write it down. What's it going to look like? What sort of size is it going to be? When do you want to exit the business? And every business owner should have a plan for when they're going to exit the business. It doesn't have to be set in stone. It's something that will probably change, but have an idea of what is the end goal? What are you going to do? Because as Michael Gerber says, Michael Gerber of the E-Myth Revisited, he says this, he says, business is a boring waste of time. The only purpose of a business is to give you more life. So the question really is, what's more life? What's more life for you? What's the life you want to live? Your starting point is to create that vision. What's the perfect life? What would be a great life? When I did this process, for me, and it'll change over time because things change. For me, a perfect life was being in the sun in Portugal, being able to just walk down to the beach, sit in a cafe and overlook the sea, being able to choose when I could work, and being able to sit around a pool. And we have those things now, but it's because 15 years ago I started this process. 15 years I started designing, and on purpose, the life that's important to me. And I created this process, Vision to Plan, because 15 years ago I was obsessed with business success. And I was reading everything I could on what makes a successful person, what are the things they do, what are the habits they have, what are the things they do in their business and their life, and started modeling that. And what we have to do is have that picture. We have to know what the end goal is going to be. So I call this from vision to plan. And what we do is we start there. I'll put some bullet points on the screen. We start off with our vision first. We start at the end. And what happens then is our vision will drive our goals. So once we know what we're trying to do in both our personal lives and our business, then we start to write down, well, what are the goals? And what I recommend you do is break it down into 3 time frames: the long-term goals, the medium, and the short-term goals. Long-term goals are something like 10 years. It's entirely up to you, but typically 10 years. Medium-term goals are typically 3 to 5 years out. Short-term goals, I find 12 months is really powerful. And I do this process every December. So for me, I plan out my calendar years. And what we do when we create our goals is we work backwards. So if our end point is to be here, if our vision is to create a business that looks like this, then where do we have to be 10 years from now to know that we're on track to do that? And having got a clear picture of 10 years, then where do we want to be, say, 5 years down the line? And we start to create some goals where those goals that if we were to achieve them in 5 years, it's telling us that we're on track to get to our 10-year goals, which means we're on track to achieving our vision. Having got our medium-term goals, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, then we map out our 12-month goals. Where do we need to be in 12 months? So if you were thinking about numbers, and most of us here are accountants or bookkeepers and numbers people, a lot of your vision and your goals will be expressed in terms of numbers. It might be, for example, you want to build a $1 million accounting firm. Okay. And you've just started out. So you've got 20, 30 years in the profession and you want it to be $1 million. Okay. So if that's the case and you might retire in 20 years time, what would be a good 10-year target? That might be, okay, 10 years from now, I need to be hitting a $500,000 practice. That means my medium-term goals at, say, 3 years, I need to be halfway there. I need to be $250,000. And that means I'm starting today. At the end of the year, if I can get to 100,000 at the end of the year, I know that if I keep doing that, I'm on track for $250,000 in year 3, on track for $500,000 in year 10. I'm on track for my $1 million practice. So we can use numbers to drill it down. But it doesn't have to be as numbers. Let me give you another example from a personal point of view. Imagine that you're 16, 17 years old, and you think back to your 16, 17-year-old self, and you're thinking about your big vision, the thing that you want to achieve in life. And perhaps, assuming you're in the US, you perhaps think, do you know what? I want to be the president of the US. Okay, visions are great. We want to have stretch goals. Okay, so it could be you want to be the president of the US. Now you might be thinking, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. It doesn't matter. Today you do not need to know how you're going to get to your vision. You'll figure it out on the way. We just need to have an end point in mind. So once we've said, okay, we want to be the president of the US. I'm 16, 17 years old. Where do I need to be in 10 years' time? Well, probably 10 years from now, I would need to have a job working somewhere in a government office, doing something inside government. And so that would be my 10-year goal. Okay, so if I was looking at 3, 4 years from now, if I want to get a job in a government office, I probably would need to have a degree from a good university. So I'm 16, 17 years old. 3, 4 years from now, my medium-term goal is to leave university with a great degree. Okay, if I work back from that, so where do I want to be in 12 months from now? If I'm going to do that, if I'm going to hit my goal of having a great university degree, where do I need to be in 12 months from now? Well, 12 months from now, I need to get into a good university. And so if our stretch goal was to be the president of the US, we don't have to figure out how we're going to do it yet. We just have to work backwards from there and say, right, well, from a year from now, my starting point is I need to be in a good university. And if I can get into a good university, I'm on track to get to the medium-term goal. We just take it one step at a time. So we start at the end and we work back. Your vision drives your goals. Now, your goals then drive your strategy. So once you've figured out where you want to be a year from now, or at the end of the calendar year, the next thing you figure out is, okay, so what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to get into a great university? I'm going to have to research universities. I'm going to have to pass my grades, do my exams, get the right grades to get into university. What are the things you have to do? If your goal is you've started your accounting firm and you want to get to 100,000 at the end of 12 months, what's the strategy? What do you have to do to get to your short-term goals? What are the things you're going to have to do? What's the marketing you're going to put in place? What are you going to do about your website? What's the strategy? So we create our strategy based on where we want to be a year from now, based on our short-term goal. Now, our strategy then drives our milestones. We're numbers people, so this is easy. So if we want to get to 100,000 in fees, we've started our accounting firm, we want to get to 100, what we do is we break it down to milestones along the way. This is our measurement system. This is our key predictive indicators, KPIs. Where do we want to be a month from now? What do the numbers have to be? 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Think of this as you're running a marathon. Your goal is to finish the marathon, but we have milestones along the way that we need to achieve. Perhaps we want to have an average. We want to make sure we're doing the right pace. And as we go along the marathon and tick off the miles, and we look at the time and our average speed, we can start to make fine-tuning adjustments if we're going too fast, if we're going too slow, to keep us back on track. So we create milestones based around the strategies that will lead towards our goal. And then our milestones could derive our plan. And so one of the things that works really well is if you now think about all the things, all the strategies, the things you need to do over the next 12 months, you'll feel overwhelmed, okay? There's probably a lot of stuff you need to do over the next 12 months to move your business to where you want it to be a year from now. So what we do is we break it down to smaller chunks, typically quarters. 3 months works really well. We take all of our strategies, all the things we want to do this 12 months, and we put them into quarters. What do we have to do? What's the most important of those? What do we have to do first? Then what do we do second? And so we create a quarterly plan. And that quarterly plan should consist of a maximum of 3 projects, and probably less, because we can't cope with more than 3 things. So if you come up with 12 things you need to do of next year to get to your 12-month goal, we take 12 things and we break them down. Which are the 3 we need to work on first? What are the 3 second? Maximum of 3, unless you're a large multi-partner firm with other partners who can do this. And we create a 3-month project. That becomes your plan, is what we're going to do for the next 3 months. What are the projects for the next 3 months? And then it's your plan that determines what you do. From that, you can create your to-do lists and plan your weeks. That is what I call the vision for plan process. Overwhelm comes from a lack of clarity. Too many things, and we don't know what to do. There's a great book by someone called David Allen called Getting Things Done. And one of the things that he says, which I think is really interesting and makes a lot of sense, is that our brains are designed to create ideas. And if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, creative person, we're always coming up with ideas. Our brains are designed to come up with ideas, but they're not designed to hold ideas. Okay, it's not a storage place. And that's what creates the problem. We've got all this stuff in our mind that's just driving us insane because we're worried we're going to forget things that are important, things we have to do. So what we have to do is recognize that it's not a storage device. It's a way of creating ideas. So we now need to think of some systems that we can use, some systems, some strategies, some hacks that's going to make our life easier. But always we have our vision in mind. We have our vision and our plan. We want to make sure that everything we're doing every day is moving us towards where we want to be, both in business and our personal lives. So let me share with you 10 ideas, 10 strategies, tactics, things that you can do. So the first idea is sometimes just take time out to stop and reflect. Sometimes just going out and talking to somebody else. If you're in business and you're a sole proprietor, sole practitioner, it can be lonely in business. I know that because that's me, and there's very often aren't other people to talk to. So one of the things I do in my business is, since we moved to Portugal a couple of years ago, one of the things I promised myself is that I would work less hard. like probably many other people, I'm a workaholic, okay? I love my business. I love what I do. I love teaching accountant stuff. I'm an accountant. I love teaching the things I've learned along the way. And so for many, many years, I would work crazy hours. I'd work through my lunch breaks. I wouldn't have lunch breaks. I'd sit at the computer doing stuff while I'm eating a sandwich, okay? I didn't take time out. 2 years ago, we moved to Portugal. And one of the things that we promised is that we're going to get our work-life balance on track. And so there's certain things that we do. I go on my bike at 11 o'clock every single day. I went out, it's 4 o'clock now in 4:23 in Portugal. I work first thing in the morning when I'm most productive. I go out at 11 o'clock on the bike because that forces me to switch off from emails and everything else. It's also exercise, keeps me healthy. And then I get back from the bike ride, an hour and a quarter, I have a shower, and then Sarah and I go down to the cafe down the road, and we sit in the cafe overlooking the sea. So my lunch breaks are now effectively about 3 hours. An hour and a quarter bike ride, shower, and then an hour to an hour and a half sat in the cafe. And I've realized that's really important because that time with Sarah, so I work with my partner, I'm very lucky, we use that to connect and chat. But because we work together as well, it's my opportunity to stop and reflect. So, for example, one of the big things that we have right now is, some of you may know, a few weeks ago I ran the Business Advisory Masterclass, which is a 3-day virtual conference. It took a lot of planning. It was great fun. If you were there, let me know you were there, and did you enjoy it? It was, I think, 3 weeks ago, the Business Advisory Masterclass. Who was there? How was it for you? And if you were there at the masterclass, you will remember I made an announcement on day 3 that we're planning to run an even bigger virtual conference at the end of the summer. 30th, 31st of August, 1st of September. If you want to make a note of that, we're running a 3-day virtual conference. And Sheila says, lots of information. Thank you, Sheila, for that comment. And so we've got this to do. But of course, we just finished this 3-day masterclass. Then we had a week time out, which you need to have to refresh your batteries sometimes. And then I had a week of training of people in the Value Pricing Academy. And this week now, I'm starting to realize it's only 2.5 months away. And I was starting to, on Tuesday, get a little bit overwhelmed, thinking, how's this conference going to be structured? How are we going to do it different to previous ones? What are we going to change? I got all this stuff going through my mind, and I was starting to feel stressed. So we had lunch yesterday, Sarah and I said, can we just talk through the things we've got to do and how we might structure the conference? And just stopping, reflecting, sitting in the sun, having a coffee, and bouncing the ideas off somebody else. In my case, it was Sarah, my partner, and suddenly it was like a weight off my shoulders. Suddenly I realized it wasn't as difficult as I was making it out. Much of it we've systemized, we've processed, we've got processes, systems in place. It was just little bits of detail of stuff that I couldn't quite figure out in my head that was stressing me out. And just talking to somebody else just made it much easier. So that's the first thing, that when you're feeling those moments of overwhelm, take some time out, stop and reflect. Stop and reflect about what's the things you're worried about right now. Perhaps talk to somebody else. Sometimes talking to people helps you to take stuff off your shoulder. Leah was there. Leah says it was great with a lot of education. Thank you. The masterclass was amazing. Thank you for that. Gary was there as well. Cool. That's the first idea. So second, number 2, and this I think is a really big one. And it goes back to the comment I said earlier from David Allen says, our brains are designed for creating ideas, not for storing ideas. And so we feel overwhelmed because we have stuff sparking off in our mind. We must remember to email that person back. It's this person's birthday. I must buy them a birthday card. And we have all this stuff. And the key is we have to get it out of our head. Our head is not for storing that stuff. We have to get it out. We have to have some systems, some processes for putting that information, that stuff that pops into our head, somewhere where we can then action it and prioritize it. There are so many tools that we can use for doing this. And I'll share I'll share in a bit the tool that I use, a tool that we've been using for several years now, and it makes my life so much easier. So we'll come on to, if you like tools and systems, we'll talk about that. So the key thing is that we need to just, any idea that we have, we need to get it out of our head and put it somewhere. Whether it's a tool that you've got, an app, whether it's a to-do list, whatever it might well be, get it out of the head and get it somewhere else. Then what we have to do is, just because we have an idea, oh, it would be great to do this, or someone's asked me to do this, just because we have something, it doesn't mean that we have to do it now. So having got it out of our head, the third thing that we should do is ask ourselves the question, does this thing need doing now? Is it absolutely urgent to do it now? Or if it's not urgent, but it will only take us a few seconds to do, it's a really quick thing, let's just get it done and then off the table, it's gone. If it's, for example, an email comes in and you could answer it in 60 seconds, just do it. Otherwise, it would play on your mind. Actually, a caveat to that, though, is, does anybody struggle with email inbox? I know a lot of people struggle with their email, and sometimes have their whole day driven by emails coming in. One of the things that I find really powerful is getting into the habit of shutting down your email and planning times when you focus on emails, but planning time when you don't have email and you work on the other stuff, because email can consume your life. So we need to have some strategies for that. So what can you do now and what can be done later? If you've got something that needs to be done, but not now, then schedule it. Schedule it somewhere. And you need a system. We need a system for doing that. I'll tell you the system that I use in a second, and the process. It might inspire you to do something similar. But we also, and this is the fourth idea, once we've got it out of our head, ask yourself the question, not only, some things can be done later, they don't have to be done now, but the other thing is, does it need to be done at all? And this is the idea of, we probably have to-do lists. I have to-do lists. But this is the idea of creating a not to-do list. And this also comes back to the vision. So when you feel you've got loads of things to do, ask yourself the question, is this thing going to take me towards my vision? If it is, then okay, you need to do it. But very often we do stuff that isn't going to do that. I often find that I go out on my bike, I come up with an idea, seems like a great idea. I then put it somewhere into my system, and then at some later date it comes up to do, and I then say, okay, on reflection, is this really going to move us towards our goals? Is it, or is it just a nice idea? And sometimes we've got things that shouldn't be done. So get into the habit of really asking yourself the question, should this be on my to-do list or should it be on my not to-do list? And related to that, the fifth idea is you want to get comfortable with saying no to stuff. I don't know about you, but I get approached very often by emails. Someone will email me out of the blue and say, hey, Mark, I've got this thing that I think will work really well for your business or for your audience. And can we talk about that? And I remember years ago, anytime someone would ping me an email and say, let's chat, I've got an idea, I have a product that might help you, we could do something together. I would get all of these, and I didn't like saying no. I like to say, yeah, okay, then let's schedule a meeting. And I would have so many meetings talking to people about their ideas because they've approached me. And then what you find is you're living your weeks by somebody else's goals, their ideas. You're reacting to people reaching out to you and say, hey, I've got a great idea. Let's work together on this project. This could be really useful. And I realized that when you've got your vision and your plan, that's working towards your vision. Let's not get sidetracked by other people reaching out who are reaching out to you because they've got a vision and a goal that you can help with. Let's keep focused on where we're going. So one of the things that I've got comfortable with is to say no. I now have a standard message that I send back to people, a standard email that says something along the lines of, People reach out to me all the time because I have, in my case, because I have a network of thousands of accountants in my Facebook group and so on. People reach out wanting to do deals, and I haven't got the time to meet with everybody. So I just have a policy of saying no. So unfortunately, I can't do anything at this point in time. It's a little bit longer than that, but essentially, it's very rare I say yes because I can just get sidetracked. I had 2 instances just this week of 2 people that actually wanted a meeting with me with something that sounded really promising. And when I had the meeting, at the end of it, they got all excited, and it could have been excited, but I looked at it and thought, is this going to take me towards my vision? No. So I wrote them both an email saying, this isn't work. I don't want to pursue this. Get into the habit of saying no to people. If it doesn't fit in with where you're trying to go, it's just going to create more overwhelm. If you react to everybody that reaches out to you, that wants to do something with you, a new idea or something, then you can find that you've just got too much on your list. Okay, let's look at number 6. I have actually got, if you want a quick reminder, so the first 5 is stop and reflect. If you're feeling overwhelmed, stop and reflect. Get it out of your head is a really key thing. All these things that keep popping in your head, until you get it out into your head and into a system, it'll still keep popping into your head every now and then. Oh, I forgot, I still need to get that birthday card from my friend. A day later, oh, I forgot again, I need to do it. Get it out of your head and into a system. Ask yourself whether it can be done later, schedule it. Ask whether it needs to be done at all. Should it be on the not to do list? And get into the habit of saying no to people. Okay, here's 5 more ideas for you. So another thing is, once you've got ideas out of your head, or once you've got things like whether it's emails, whether it's anything that needs to be done, an idea that you come up with, an email or something, we want to start to organize them in some way. And you might organize things in terms of, and this I got from David Allen, of getting things done. He suggests you organize things by project, time, or context. So something that needs to be done might be something that's part of a bigger project. So think about the vision to plan process. It might be that one of the things you're going to do in quarter 2 is a project to launch a big online conference, for example. And then you come up with an idea, you're out and you come up with an idea that thinks, oh, when I run that conference, I could do X, Y, Z. Right. Well, that thing you've come up with, or that email someone sent you, relates to that project. So let's get it out of our head and add it to that particular project, so that when we get to quarter 2 and we're working on that project, all those things that came up, those ideas, those people that suggested stuff, you've recorded them and attached them to that project. When it's time to work on that project, it's all there. We don't have to worry about it now. So some of those things those items that come into your life, those ideas, people reaching out to you, those things, you might organize them by bigger picture projects. It might be that you need to organize them by time, in which case, get it in your calendar. Sometimes things just have to be done at a certain time. Get it in the calendar and then forget about it. And the third thing is context. So it may be that you're thinking, I need to get some new light bulbs. Okay, it doesn't have to be done now, but we need to get some light bulbs. Well, where would you get that from? Well, perhaps an Amazon order. So perhaps in your system somewhere you have Amazon order, and you just add that to that list and then forget about it. And then you think about a few days later, you've run out of toilet paper and you buy that from Amazon, so you add that. And then at the point in time in the future when you place an Amazon order, you've got a list. You've got a list of all the things in context, all the things that you could do in one go and batch it. So think about how you're going to organize stuff. You get the stuff out of your head, and then it wants to be put somewhere in your system as part of a project, in your calendar, if it's got a time to it, or as part of a list that's in context. And something could be in more than one of those places. So the tool that I use, and there are dozens of tools that I use for organizing my life, and if, as I described that, if you've got a tool that you particularly love that helps you to be organized, then put it in the comments. But the one that I've used for many years now is Trello. And Trello makes my life so easy because it's a flexible system, and it's one that I've set up for me to get the stuff out of my head and put them in different places. So for example, we have a Trello board. We have a vision to plan board. And every year we have this process of thinking about the goals, the strategies, and we break it down to projects. So I can go to a Trello board for strategic planning, and I've got all the things listed, the goals, the projects for each of quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. I know what the big things are. We did the planning at the start of the year. That's the big thing. And they drive our weekly planners. So I have a weekly planner, and that weekly planner has Trello cards. And those Trello cards, I always make sure those cards relate to one of the projects that I'm working on. And I'll come back to that point in a short while. I also have an area where sometimes ideas pop into my mind. Wouldn't it be great to do this? This would be a good idea. Well, I have on Trello, I have a place called an ideas log. And so if I come up with an idea, it would be great to do this thing. I create a card for it. I jot down the notes for it, and I put it in the ideas log, and I forget about it. Because I then have a process every now and then, and certainly every single year as part of the strategic planning, is I then go and open up my ideas log. It's a list of ideas of Trello cards. And when I plan each year, I see that idea I came up with 6 months ago. Right, is that idea now something we should build into our next plan, for our 12-month plan? Or do we save it for the future? We have so many ideas that it gets overwhelming. We can't do everything. So we need to have a way of capturing those ideas, and put them in the appropriate place. So as I say, I use Trello because Trello is flexible, and I can use Trello for having projects. I can have Trello, you can have calendar views, so you can put dates on everything and due dates, and also you can create lists like ideas lists. Okay, that's I can see questions and things coming in right now, so I'll come on to questions soon. A few more things. When you have things that you need to do that's been playing on your mind, you've got it out of your head now. You're going to put it somewhere. This is the thing that needs to be done. As well as asking yourself the question: does it need to be done now, or can it be done later? Does it need to be done at all? Should I say should this be on the not to do list? Other things to ask yourself the question is: can this be delegated or outsourced? You're a business owner. And very often as business owners, we try to do too much stuff. We want to be in control. I used to be a control freak. Very often business owners are control freaks. We want to feel like we have control of everything in our business. And sometimes we just have to let go and trust somebody else to do it. So what can you delegate or outsource? Either somebody in your team or outsource to somebody else. And the next idea is: what can you systemize? What systems could you put in place? What processes? Because sometimes these stuff that we keep doing, we could simplify our lives by just automating the process. So can you systemize it, or can you delegate, outsource it? And then the next idea for you is: when we feel overwhelmed, it's because there's lots of stuff in our head. And what we need to recognize is that we can only ever do one thing at a time. Let's not beat ourselves up that there's 3 things we'd like to do today, but we can't do them all. So focus on one thing at a time. We are much more focused when we block out time to work on something. And so I had something this morning I had to work on, and it had been on my mind for a few days now. I knew it had to be done, but it needed probably a good hour and a half, 2 hours. So I decided, right, this morning I'm going to block out the time to do it. And once I'd got in the zone and I'd turned the emails off, I was doing that little small project, it came together really, really quick. And it didn't take as long as I originally thought it would do, because I was focusing on one thing. But very often what we do, and I have done this myself, I'm guilty, is we start doing something, we've left our emails on, an email pops into our inbox, and suddenly our eyes are drawn to it, and we think, let's just answer that email. And then we answer that email, and then something else pops into our inbox, and then we feel we have to answer that. And then we realize that perhaps something triggers and reminds us to check our Facebook page. and just check that. And this project we started off on, which could have been done in an hour, is we've got to the end of the day and we've not finished it because we got distracted on other things. So focus on one thing. You can only do one thing at a time. Focus on one thing, and anything that's going to take you more than an hour, block out time. Again, I use Trello for that. One of my Trello boards, and it's the board that's open every single day, is my weekly planner. And the way that works is I have a column called future tasks. Anything that needs doing at some future date gets a card, and I put a date on it as to when it wants doing. And then it automatically, that column sorts itself every day on date order. So at the start of the week, I move the Monday tasks into Monday, the Tuesday into Tuesday, the Wednesday into Wednesday, the Thursday and the Friday. And so I can just see visually in a grid format what needs to be done each day of the week. And this is now number 10. I'll put them back on the screen. One of the things you want to do is review each week. Start off the week with a review. So again, I use Trello because it's visual. I start off the week or finish the week by moving all the things that need to be done that's popped up in my system that need to be done on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I can then see visually what the week looks like. What are the things that need doing? And if I look at that week and think, crikey, there's a lot of stuff needs doing on Wednesday, and I've got to do a live session at 4 o'clock, how am I going to get all that stuff done? I then look at it at the start of the week and say, okay, does that really need to be done? Is that thing taking me close to my vision and my goals? Does it need to be done this week? Could it just be put back to another time? Could I delegate it? Could I pass it to someone else on the team? And that's a great thing about Trello is you can delegate and move cards to other people's boards. I do that all the time. I like delegating. Can we delegate it? Can we systemize it? Can we outsource it? And at the start of every week, I do that. And I've always got my 12-month goals and my projects in mind. Will those things on my board right now, will all of those things move me forward to where I'm trying to get to? Anything that's not going to move me forward, let's take it off the board. And let's either put it on the not to do list, because perhaps in hindsight we don't need to do that thing, or we put it for a future date, or we move it just to take the date off and put it in my ideas log for something to visit at some point in time in the future. So just a final things just to wrap up. Remember, you cannot do everything at once. It's impossible. It's impossible. We feel overwhelmed because we have all this stuff going on. We can't do everything at once. And so it's all about just having that focus on where we want to get to, and then having a system, getting it out of our head, putting in a system whereby we know the system is going to tell us at the appropriate time, this now has to be done now. When we know our system does that, we can forget about it right now until it pops up in the system. And the last thing I want to share with you, and this is perhaps the most important thing of today's session. You said earlier in the comments box that some of you said you get overwhelmed and it leads to stress. And stress leads to health problems. It can lead to mental problems. At the end of the day, take time out to enjoy life. As business owners, we risk burnout by trying to do too much stuff. Just recognize that if you're 16, 17-year-old now and you want to be the US president, you don't have to figure it out right now. You just have to know what's the next step. What's the next step? And just work on that right now. As you take your business and your life one step at a time, you'll figure out the other things at the appropriate time. We can't do it all now. We take things one step at a time. And just remember, sometimes it's great to just take time out, relax, enjoy life. Okay, I hope that's given you some thoughts, some helps. I know we've got some questions. I'm going to answer questions in a bit. We have 15 minutes. Before I get into questions, Sarah's going to put in the chat box the link for you to vote for what you want to do next month. So we have, if I click here, we use Slido. If you're brand new, we use Slido as a poll. And so all you need to do is either with your phone scan that QR code or go to slido.com and type in that reference, hashtag 7039918, or use the link that will come into the chat box fairly soon. And if I just hit this button here, poll hide results for the moment. So what we're going to do next month is one of either I can talk to you and teach you how to create and structure the perfect proposal. If you do proposals, it's a pricing topic, or we could look at the right questions to ask customers, and clients so you can deliver a better solution. We could look at building your expert positioning and personal brand. It's part of marketing strategy. Or we could look at how to create your business plan. Or we could do marketing, how to write great marketing copy. Which of those 5 would you like me to teach you next month? I can see votes coming in already. So I will, and I think the links, I know the links, Sarah's posted them, so I'm going to close that on my screen right now. The links are in the chat box. I know they're in YouTube, they're in Facebook. Keep the votes going. I'll tell you what the winner is in a little while, and I'll tell you the date, but let me see what questions we have. So I need to just go back a little bit. Bear with me a second while I look for the questions. Who asked the first question? John Bell said, I don't think it's a question, but structuring your days help. Schedule an hour to review email every day. Deal with the urgencies if they are truly urgent. John, yeah, great, absolutely. I mean, personally, for email, I know that I'm at my most productive in the morning. So I tend to do big projects in the morning, and I tend to then block out some time in the afternoon, like an hour, to deal with emails. So emails I tend to do at my least productive part of the day. So thank you for that feedback. So Nikki goes back, has tried all sorts of tools, but she always goes back to her good old-fashioned diary. Paper and pen can be great. I'm 100% paperless, so I make all my notes on my iPad with an app called Notability. I do all my planning with Notability. I love that app. It's really simple, really powerful. But I like Trello because I have it on all my devices, which means that if I'm out and about, I can add cards and so on. Okay. Michaela, you said you're late, but you're here now anyway. Michaela, I need to give you some dates about meeting in London. Sorry, I'm getting distracted, aren't I? I can see, it's interesting seeing what people are using. Martin uses sticky notes as his system. I've heard that's good. Linda, she uses OneNote, which is quite cool. So Lisa has a question. Lisa says, what is your new vision now that you've achieved the move to Portugal? Hey, that's a good question, Lisa. What's my new vision? That's a difficult one because we kind of, I've got close to the stage now where it's close to the perfect life. It's what I've always wanted. We love Portugal. We love the weather here. We love the lifestyle. My big issue, I've said, is I'm a workaholic. I love the work I do, and I need to work less hard. And so a lot of my vision is tied in with my business vision, where it's going to go. I don't plan to retire at any time. I don't think I'll ever retire, but I also I need to structure things so that I tweak the work-life balance, and I'm working on that. We have a plan for that. So we have a plan. My personal vision is very much tied to my business vision about definitely not retiring, but structuring in a way where it doesn't need me to be there all the time. So that was an interesting question. I'm looking for more questions. Dave Lee says, email isn't the problem so much as the telephone. So here's my strategy to that one. I don't give my telephone number out. Nobody, and in fact, I'm an introvert, a big introvert, and I don't like the telephone as a means of communication. I'd much rather see people. I love Zoom. I hate the telephone. So I don't answer the telephone to almost anybody unless I know who they are. If it pops up with a number, I won't answer it. I'll just assume it's a sales call. So people can't ring me. And Dave, I know that there's always this You want to be accessible to your clients, and I think it's right to be accessible to clients, but at the same time, you've got to set the boundaries and the rules. In my business, for example, I don't even give out my email address. If people in the Value Pricing Academy want me, they email Sarah, and then very often Sarah can deal with it. Doesn't need me to be aware of it. So she will deal with most things anyway. And if I need to deal with it, we'll talk about it, and then I'll usually... What I do is I send an email back to Sarah saying suggested response, and she sends my response back from her email. So it's you just need to, if you're finding you get stressed because of either emails or because of telephone calls or whatever, think about how you can restructure your life. And if it's business related, it's your business. You can change the boundaries, you can change the rules to suit you. Leah said, can you go back to the slide that lists the first 5? And Lisa said, what was number 10? So I absolutely can do that. So just bear with me a second. So the first 5, this was Leah asked. The first 5 were stop and reflect, get it out of your head. What can be done later? Create a not to do list and learn to say no to things. That was for Leah. Perhaps if Sarah's a quick typist, she might be able to even type that in as a comment. I'm putting the pressure on her because I now need to give Lisa her number 10. So sorry, Sarah, if you're halfway through that, because the second 5 were these. Number 10, Lisa. Lisa says, what was number 10? Review every week. Once you've got a system, review your plan, your weekly plan at the start of every week. And it doesn't say it on the slide, but the key thing is review it with your goals in mind. Which of these things are going to move you forward to your short-term goals, and which things aren't? And if they're not going to move you forward, take them off, delegate them, outsource them, move them to later, whatever it might well be, but don't do stuff that's not going to move you forwards in life to whatever that might well be. We have 5 minutes left. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Oh, Lisa, thank you, Lisa. She always does this. Very kind. One day I'll remember to do this myself. If you've enjoyed it so far, and we've got 5 minutes of questions still, but please click that. If you're on YouTube, it's a thumbs up. I think it's thumbs up on YouTube. Facebook, it's like. LinkedIn, I always forget. If you enjoyed it, just let me know. Hit that button. I can see a few people have done that in YouTube. Let me just fast forward a second. Okay, I have a question in a second, but let me just check this out from Janice. So Janice purposely chooses to not work in her office on Sundays before 6, so I can take at least most of one whole day away from working. Oh wow, Janice, that suggests to me that you work 6 days a week. So perhaps that needs to change. That's entirely up to you. It's your life. It's your business. I don't think I work. I almost never ever work Saturday, Sunday now at all. Sometimes ideas pop into my head because I can't help myself. But I used to many years ago. I used to work Saturday mornings. I don't do that now. Okay, question. Can you, so this was, I don't know your first name, so I apologize, but recommend any resources for bringing on your first employee? Okay, that's thrown me a bit. I think the answer to that is I don't know. It's not my expertise about hiring systems and so on. When I started my accounting firm back in 1996, I made terrible mistakes with hiring people in the first few years, terrible mistakes. And then I started to figure out some better solutions. I started to learn about how to hire great people. And in about 1999, 2000, 3-4 years into my accounting firm, I started to do things very, very differently. And I created a whole hiring system. So I didn't have resources or apps or technology, but I did create, back in 99, 2000, I systemized my accounting firm. I delegated a lot of my work to my client managers so that I could write the systems, the checklist, how we do things. I was obsessed by the Michael Gerber message, the E-Myth Revisited, and I wrote systems for how to hire people. And then in my next business, which was AVN, we then created, again inspired by Michael Gerber, an idea of the hiring seminar, where if you advertise for a job and get 10 applicants, rather than having 10 interviews, which is time consuming, have a hiring seminar, get them all into a room, share your vision, share something about where your business is going and about the role you're looking for, and then we used to invite people to fill in a short questionnaire, and then they'd go and have an informal conversation with a member of the team for a maximum of 5 minutes. And then afterwards, the team would vote and say, which of those 10 people do we think would fit in the business? And we'd narrow it down to 1 or 2 to interview. So one day, perhaps I can share more of that. But in terms of, going back to the question, in terms of resources, I can't help there because it's not my expertise. But if anybody else can help with that question, please put it in the comments box. Okay, we only have 2 minutes left. Perhaps time for one more question. I have no idea why Sarah says including me. I'm sure it was including me. What did I say at the time? I can't remember. Nikki says, I love your honesty. I think a lot of accounting professionals are introverts. And some people say to me, so Mark, if you're an introvert, they say you can't be an introvert because you do live streams and stuff. But I learned many years ago that when it comes to either standing on a stage, doing videos, doing live streams, doing webinars, it's got nothing to do with introversion or extroversion. Extroverts fear all that just as much as introverts. We all fear it. It's got nothing to do with being an introvert. And actually, I learned that introverts are very often better communicators because I talk in my head all the time. I have lots of ideas that I want to get out there. So this is my medium for getting out my message. And I think that's the case with a lot of introverts. We have a story to share. We just don't like one-to-one conversations. We don't like dinner parties. We hate networking events. I really abhorred networking events. That wasn't for me, going up to talk to strangers. But I found this is one way I can communicate. I nearly forgot. Hang on a second. I need to share the results of the next session. Okay. We're going to be doing the right questions to ask to deliver a better solution. So that's our next session. As for the date of that, you might want to make a note. It's going to be same time. It's going to be, I think, a Wednesday again, and it's going to be July 13. So that's probably about 4 weeks today. So that's the next session, July 13. Make a note of that one. As usual, a week beforehand, we'll put the details into the various social channels. And if you're in the VPA or if you're on an email list, the Mondays before that will remind you. So that's the right questions to ask to deliver a better solution. Let me close the poll. I think we are about up for time. I'm just seeing if there's any short questions that I can answer quickly. Abraham, hi there, Abraham. Great to see you. Unfortunately, I don't know it. I don't have it to hand. But if anybody else has the details, I guess, Abraham, if you just go to Amazon and type in Dave Allen, he does a lot of stuff around. It's called Getting Things Done. Getting Things Done. Okay, was there any other really? Sarah said, and this is actually very true, I don't even feel comfortable talking to Sarah on the phone. None to Sarah, it's the introvert in me. I just find the telephone a scary thing, and it's illogical. I have no idea why. I just don't like picking up a telephone. But I'm happy that a Zoom meeting. So I can talk to Sarah on Zoom, but also she's in the next room, so that's even easier still. Okay, so someone says, I see Trello in a new light. If those of you in the Value Pricing Academy, we often teach sessions on how we use Trello. Emily's done some training videos on that. I know quite a few people in the academy have started using Trello because of our training and love it. Dave says, for your future tasks, do you label those tasks for context? I do, yes. Again, because we use Trello, one of the features of Trello is you can use labels, color-coded labels. So my weekly planner, everything on my weekly planner has a label. And they are labels like marketing, content creation, strategy. I forget all of them. And so I can see at a glance very quickly when I review my week ahead. Is it a week of content creation? Is it a week of strategic thinking? If something's got, so I have pink for strategic thinking. If that comes up, then I do my best strategic thinking, perhaps down at the cafe or somewhere else in the afternoon. So I'll block out the time when I'm not doing a webinar to do my strategic thinking. So yes, David is the answer to that one. Everything on my weekly planner has a label. I'm not alone. Claire also hates the phone. Okay, I'm not a freak. Or at least I'm not the only freak. I do find it scary. It's weird. And Dave says, absolutely, I'm a textbook introvert, but love public speaking. Okay, so yeah, Dave, similar to me. Okay. Sarah's confirmed the date of the next session. I think I've got through all the questions. We're 3 minutes over. I apologize. So I'm going to play out with some music, as I usually do, so I can read through any other comments that I've missed. As Lisa said, if you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. I will see you online again sometime fairly soon. If you're in the VPA, I might see you tomorrow. Our next session for this is the 13th of July. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.